This is a hot wire cutter, fairly inexpensive. It's basically just a heating element. And I'm using it to cut through some packaging foam that I found in the recycle bin. And I'm going to try something new in this video. I'm going to try using the packaging foam to create a barrier or a mold for resin. So here I'm just kind of cutting out some irregular shapes that I'm then going to use as molds for shapes on a painting. So you can buy this wire cutter, heated wire cutter, something like that. But they make other versions of the same thing as well. Now, I'm going to speed this up quite a bit, but I'm showing you that I am taking the rub R mold, which I've talked about before in class, and basically I'm applying it to the bottom and to the walls of those foam shapes. And this is so the resin, when I pour it in, will release easily from the foam and won't stick to the foam or bond to the foam. And also the rub-ar mold will be an adhesive to the surface of my board. So here I'm about to stick it down to the board. What I found out later is that the rub-ar mold actually didn't dry very well on the bottom of the board, so I could have been a little bit less, or put a little bit less of the rub-ar mold on the bottom of the foam. But I let that dry overnight. And then I poured, so I mixed up and I poured two different colors. I'm showing you that I'm using my blowtorch here to blow out the bubbles, and it melts the foam a little bit, but not so much that it's a problem. And that is basically what it looks like after I poured the resin into that mold created by the foam and the rub-ar mold. So the rubber mold is a silicone rubber, so resin does not stick to silicone. So it makes for a good resist, or a good mold maker. And then here, this was the next day. I'm simply going through and pulling off all the styrofoam. Pretty messy, but the rub-ar mold came off just as expected. And then you might be able to see a little bit that I'm encountering quite a bit of wet rubber mold underneath parts of the foam. So again, probably could have applied it a little thinner so that it didn't stay so wet on the bottom. And pretty straightforward. It worked well. I think I would probably do this again. I made the shapes a little bit thicker than I had originally intended, and I'm probably going to take a power sander and sand them down. But those shapes pop off the surface, and they are as secure as anything to that surface. Once resin cures, it is very, very strong, and you can see places where the rubber mold kind of went underneath a little bit, but that's not a problem. There's a really solid connection there. And that is an experiment creating a mold using styrofoam and rubber mold to create shapes on a surface out of resin.